continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.co.uk at your service at any time. You can also find us on YouTube, the channel, search Force 13, all in text, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also find us on Facebook at Force 13, and it's at Force 13 on Twitter, that's the handle to contact us there. You can also add Fool13 on Skype, that's FOOL13, and add extension 9094 on Discord for tropical weather chat. You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. Good evening. You're listening to Force 13 Live. You're watching even. This is the view outside of Force 13 HQ. My name's Nathan Foy, and we are currently tracking Cyclone Mekunu, which I'm still struggling to get my head around, actually. I'm sort of getting it confused with all the place names in Oman, but as it is right now, it is, as we saw at the top of the hour there, very close to the island of Socotra, and is headed towards the coast of Oman. Salalah in particular is an area that we are looking at. Let's get back to the storm picture that we were showing just before the beginning of tonight's event. Somewhere. There it is. That's the latest rain picture. This is a estimated rainfall graphic depicted from the satellite, showing very strong, very large amounts of precipitation falling to the south and east of the cyclone. It has winds of 75 miles an hour and a pressure of around 981 according to the US Navy's information. Let's have a little chat with Craig, shall we? He's also here with me at this time. Good evening. Are you there?
Yeah, I just had some technical issues.
Ah. They can strike without warning. You've been following this storm for some time, and do you have any thoughts about it right now?
Well, this sort of storm in the Arabian Sea, it's how do I put this? It's quite an interesting looking system, but it's very cumbersome, seeing as how it's followed after O1A, which went into the Gulf of Eden, of all places. But this storm heading towards Yemen, I believe. People in Yemen do need to pay attention to this cyclone. As it is.
The very eastern extremity of Yemen, but it's mainly Oman, actually, the southernmost part.
Oman.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the people in Yemen and Oman do need to pay attention to this cyclone, as it is expected to peak at 105 miles per hour, and 18Z just came out saying 70 knots. So I don't know whether you read that out, but just reiterating it if you didn't.
No, that is news, yes.
18Z just came out saying it's 70 knots, meaning it is 80 miles per hour, which therefore...
What's the pressure on that now that they're saying?
Well, need to go onto the Navy website for that.
Okay, well, whilst we wait for that, let me just make everyone feel involved, as we always do. If you would like to get involved in proceedings tonight, of course you can send a message in the chat feature right now. That is open, of course, and people are commenting. If you've got any questions for us, do start your message with Force 13. It will highlight nicely for me, and we'll be able to take any questions or comments that you've got, because it really is a service that we're providing for everyone viewing, and so it wouldn't be much of a show if you weren't involved. There is the storm right now, and it's around, I think it was 50 miles or so east of Socotra Island.
Just reading off the latest information, I know this is a bit outdated from the Navy website, but they're saying from the 65 knot advisory, they were saying 981. So I don't know whether they're going to put that down. They probably will put that pressure down, seeing as how an eye is starting to try and develop.
What have you been thinking about? What have you made of its structure recently?
It's a storm that's looked like it's been trying to rapidly intensify due to its curve band feature that's appeared on microwave imagery, but it's had significant issues with its eye wall. There's a part of it that's open on the northeastern side that is open, so the northeastern side of the eye wall is exposed and is wide open for attack. But other than that, the storm itself is looking fairly decent in terms of cloud tops, but the eye wall does need a lot of work done to it on that eastern side.
Yes. Looking at that rainfall estimate right now, in this part of the world we have less satellite coverage. We've only got hourly imagery at best round here, unfortunately. I mean, there are places that do have more up-to-date imagery, but on this view at least we have hourly imagery. But the Navy have a rainfall estimator from the satellite imagery, and that updates every 15 minutes, so we get to see almost up to the minute what the picture's looking like in terms of rain rate. This image in particular is only 5 minutes old, which is pretty good by satellite standards. And if we look north a little bit, you can see Salalah there, which is very close to the border with Yemen, for those who are unfamiliar with the area. And you can see the first real band of the storm is just about reaching the shore there. Although there is a lot more to come behind it, of course. You'll probably get light to moderate rain in that first preliminary band, and that will be affecting the area in the next hour or two. Now, me and Craig did a little bit of a almost an informal bet before the beginning of the show as to how long it would take for someone to mention Invest 90L. Well, someone did it after 7 minutes, Craig. That is another system active elsewhere in the
Yeah.
Western Caribbean, and we'll be talking about that a little bit more later on, but I don't know if you've got any quick thoughts first.
It looks terrible.
Okay, well that's that.
Short
Now,
and sweet.
as far as I recall, there are no official warnings in Oman or indeed anywhere else. But obviously they are advising, you know, the usual things. Flash flooding is a distinct possibility along the coastline there, especially with a storm as wet as this one. I saw in some places that some model runs predicting that parts of this storm in some areas could, maybe not on land, but could deliver over 50 inches. As of right now, near the centre of the storm there, those black areas, you can see the scale at the bottom as well. That's 60 millimeters of rain per hour or greater. What's that in inches? That's about nearly 3 inches.
Around about there.
So 2.5, 3 inches per hour in the near the centre of the storm.
Yeah, it's around. It's just it's 2.95 inches worth of rain.
That's quite a lot to fall in 1 hour.
Yeah.
Okay then. Well,
I was just looking at a question that I seen there in the chat, Nathan.
I was going to do that.
What was the last system to hit Oman and Yemen? I think that would have been sometime in 2015. Would have been either Japal or Meg.
Well, Meg hit. I think didn't they both reach Yemen?
But
they didn't hit Oman. Oman's last landfall. Would we be going back to Cyclone Fet on that one?
I think you would be actually.
2010, but not so long ago. It wasn't Ashobar, was it, that came close?
I think Ashoba was near
or Nanak, which may have come close. I can't remember myself, but I was looking into the background research. I can tell you that 5 storms have hit Oman since 2000.
Ooh.
So, you know, in terms of rarity, we're talking about, well, about as rare as a storm hitting the United States these days. Well, maybe not. Not after last year. But, okay, let's see some other questions then. What will the northern coast of South Carolina receive from 90L? Well, who knows at this point. We'll talk about that later. A lot of people talking about the historical context, but yeah, that's pretty much everything for now. But if you do have any questions, do send in your questions. But as of right now, the storm has winds, Craig tells me, of 80 miles an hour, which is around 130 kilometers per hour, maybe a little more, and could strengthen significantly more before landfall. Indeed, at the beginning of the week, the HWRF model was calling for this storm to be a Category 5. Well, that doesn't look like it's going to occur, but it could still get to Category 3 intensity on approach to land. And then, even if it's not the winds, a place like Oman has seen storms like this in the past, and it doesn't take much intensity for the rainfall to really become a factor in an area that isn't necessarily used to a huge amount of rainfall, and flash flooding, which could cause significant property damage, and of course risk to life and limb as well. So obviously it is going to be something we're watching closely, especially with the rainfall, and we'll get a decent indication of how it's faring when these first rain bands come in. That'll probably happen over the course of tonight and early tomorrow morning. When we're looking at the possible landfall time, last I saw, I think it's going to be Friday still, or maybe Thursday night. What do you think about that, Craig? If he's there. Well, Craig's run off somewhere. Oh. I think we're just arranging something else actually now on the on the stream. We're trying to get David on board, and I think he's here.
He is.
Nope.
I was just looking at this
That's
track of
Craig.
Ashoba,
Okay.
and Ashoba didn't actually make it to Yemen.
Right.
Ashoba
No.
dissipated just before it.
Do you mean Yemen or Oman?
I probably mean in Oman.
Yeah, it did get very
Oman.
close. I didn't say it hit, but it was pretty close. So just an interesting example. You don't suggest that this storm is going to make a vanishing act of its own as well. It looks like it's going to plough into land at a significant intensity no matter what, right?
Yeah, whereas Ashoba had a lot of dry air and wind shear against it, so that was Ashoba's death really already planned out as soon as Ashoba formed. I'm just looking at Chapala. Chapala did make it to Yemen as a Category 1 on the south side of it in the Gulf of Eden. Cyclone Meg didn't make it. It only made it just as a remnant low before dissipating. So it was pretty much lucky to get there. So those were the
Yeah.
only cyclones that got near was Chapala and Meg.
Do we have David now?
Yes, I'm here, and good evening to you, Nathan and Craig, and to our viewers wherever you are. The local Omanian Oman Met Office, and they really haven't updated their warning
Now,
since the 21st of May.
I looked at that, David. You ought to check
Yeah.
their Twitter account. They have more updates there. Oman
Right,
Meteorology.
that was my next move, and see the hash key of the cyclone. So
Now, Craig,
I'll have a look.
can you see this imagery that we're showing?
On the stream?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on its appearance? You can certainly see where the eye is.
Or where the eye should be.
It's this little green area here.
Surrounded by, well, some rain, but it's struggling on that western side.
And if we
But the
look at
eastern side's looking pretty nice.
water vapor imagery there as well, what do you think of that?
Obviously, there's that 5 to 5 second delay.
And tripping over words as well.
There it is. Well, there's no dry air intrusions. That's for certain.
Well, what's
but
that
like,
to the left there? There's a little indent over the island, really.
Whether that is a dry air intrusion, which probably could be, but it's looking like it on the eastern side where the cloud tops are the lowest. It looks like there's also dry air getting in above the storm as well. So whether the upper levels could have a little bit of dry air as well.
Let me just go and get the cloud top image as well. Here's one. That's the funk top imagery.
Nathan, I have
Look for the
some
other one.
local news.
Go ahead.
Oman Air Operations put out a posting due to the tropical cyclone, and they're indicating possible landfall expected to reach Salalah and surrounding areas Friday the 25th, Saturday and Sunday, and our flights may be affected, and they're advising all travellers to check with the airline and through their various social media channels.
Craig,
So-
here's the cloud top view. Any thoughts on that? And get a loop
It's
of
still
it as
looking
well.
it's looking very bare on that western side, but the eastern side is looking remarkably healthy in terms of cloud tops. It's got a very nice big area of convection on that eastern side, but the western side needs a lot of work done to it.
I'm just loading up a loop at this point, and when it finishes, hopefully it will, you'll be able to see its progression throughout the last 12 hours, and then see what you think of that.
Once it gets the complete images loaded, I mean, the first few images, it just looks like roadkill. Virtually, it does look like roadkill. And the last frame, it is trying to wrap round, but
Had a very remarkable
see-
shape at the start, though. In the overnight hours coming into this morning, it looked almost annular in a way.
almost it looked
see what
almost
I
as if it
mean?
was getting. Yeah, it was looking as it also it looked like almost as if it was getting battered by dry air. The way it looked like it was cracked, and this clouds were.
It just seems so huge, and now it's sort of gone smaller again. But the central core obviously has been the same size.
Yeah, except that the eye on the latest microwave image looks like an egg. It virtually does look like an egg.
Do you have any imagery of that for us?
Once the Navy site refreshes. Technical difficulties of the highest order with Navy.
Ah, that's a shame.
But yeah, that's the problems with using ATCF based.
Okay, here we are. We have one moment. Here's some imagery from Craig. Talk us through this. It's a microwave image that we're looking at. And quite clearly you can see the structure. I don't think we have Craig's audio whilst he's screen sharing. Discord did something strange recently, and the sort of his temperamental screen sharing microphone things. So I'll have to talk through it without Craig's input, unfortunately. But there is the storm, and to the west it looks like some significant... I mean, that would suggest, that imagery there, that the strongest part was to the west. I mean, I think that was that area that's pushing its way through the island down towards the west there, but it looks to me at this point that the southeast is still significantly the strongest part of the storm. And probably certainly the wettest when we look back at that rainfall estimate image, which we'll go back to now, and we'll see if there's a new image. There should be by this time. Nope, still not yet. We're still stuck with the image from nearly 20 minutes ago. David, any thoughts?
There's not much taking place on the Twitter platform. I've used the name of the cyclone, and I'm hardly picking up anything. If somebody knows, I think the language, what would the language be over there?
It's
Arabian?
quite clearly Arabic, isn't it, David? It's the Arabian Peninsula we're talking about.
I'm going to post about 5 lines in the chat, and if anybody can decipher it and put
David
it
will need a
into
translator over there.
a translator. So if anybody knows the language, please post.
Well, that's something
And
that could
here
go on
it
in the chat section.
I know. I'll post a link to the local Mangalore Mirror, one of the newspapers over there. So the link's been posted in the chat. But I'm continuing to monitor, Nathan. But what I would like you to answer, you and I were in a conversation, and I think I asked you what are the or what were the historical storms going back to 1890 for that region, and this follows on to the previous tropical cyclone Sagar. I think I've got that one right.
Well, there was a storm in 1890 that hit the northern part of Oman as a Category 1, which hasn't never been done before or since to our knowledge. That's not quite the area we're talking about tonight, or will be talking about in the next few days. But we have been going through the history here and there, and there is a lot still yet to be discovered, I'm quite sure. But as I say, 5 storms have hit Oman, made landfall there since 2000. There were probably a few beforehand as well. But if you want to talk more about Sagar, last week that occurred, of course, and that was the furthest west storm since an unnamed storm in 1984, which made landfall as a tropical depression in Somaliland, not far from the Djibouti. Is it Djibouti border there, or is it somewhere else first? Yes. And then you have to go back to 1885 for the last significant storm in that area that we know of, at least. A storm that occurred just a few miles off the coast of Aden, which is where that box is right now. And that we know that there was a ship report in that location which recorded a pressure of 943 millibars, which would suggest category 3 plus. Who knows where it went after that, but that I would love to have seen that storm on satellite, but unfortunately that predated that satellite by at least 80 years. In any case, back to the current storm in hand. I'm not sure when the last landfall in this particular area was, but the last storm that was in the area of a significant intensity was probably Chapala.
Well,
Nathan,
in that area where Mekunu is, it would be very close to it. It probably would be Meg, because Meg passed very close to that island as a category 3.
I'm thinking from Salalar's perspective.
Oh,
Last storm to pass near there, I'm not quite sure.
I just cited a posting on Twitter. It's about 16 hours old, and what was the information about possible rainfall out of this system?
What we can show you in a moment is, well, if I was just to take away the screen for a minute, I can see what the HWRF model is predicting in terms of rainfall.
Yeah, because this posting shows several hundred millimetres of precipitation in a few hours, but could mean
Well, right
some
now
serious impacts.
it already is delivering 70 millimeters per hour in the most intense part of the storm right now. It is out at sea though, and it usually produces storms usually produce a lot more rainfall out at sea. But sometimes they do produce more on land as well. Let me just look back at this now. This is the HWRF model run from 12 Zulu, which is around 8 hours ago. It's the latest. And you can see that it still predicts that the storm will reach category 3 intensity, and quite strong category 3 at that, 125 miles an hour. Craig, is it complete lunacy, or do you think there's a chance that could happen?
well, if you want complete lunacy, just look at what the GFS was saying prior to this thing forming.
What was it
But-
saying?
And that was?
Sub 900.
Oh dear.
GFS's favorite thing.
HWRF saying 945 millibars at peak in 48 hours, so we'll see whether that happens, although the NavGem is saying, being a bit more sensible, although maybe not sensible enough, because it initiates the storm 10 millibars weaker than it actually is, and says it will only get to 978 millibars. Well, believe which one you want to believe. It also says the official, well, not the official, but the JTWC forecast takes it to 105 miles an hour. The India, here's the India forecast. They're the officials in the area. They're saying 95 to 100 miles per hour. And the NavGem is saying 100 miles per hour. So we've sort of got a consensus there, and the HWRF a bit of an intense outlier to the higher point there. Just looking at the rain there, to the west of the storm it says there's going to be large amounts of rain, up to 49 inches in some locations out at sea. Looking inland there, difficult to see, but just east of Salalar it looks to me as though you could see possibly 30 inches of rainfall.
And that's a lot of rain to fall within an hour or so.
No, not in an hour, during the whole storm.
Oh, during the entire storm.
30 inches in an hour?
Good lord.
No. And as you can see, that rain trail there extends quite a significant distance inland too. Whether
Which
that
would mean
actually
the storm-
verifies, given that this is the desert after all, who knows?
Yeah, I was just saying that this storm would have to be packing a hell of a lot of moisture behind it.
Well, that Twitter posting said flooding rains to impact the two Yemen and the Armenian borders.
Now look at this new image, Craig.
Oh, look at the purple.
What do you think of that?
Purple near where the eye should be.
This
Is
blue,
probably
this blue area there, which is right where the eye is. So that is near nil rainfall. So that's clearly the eye. Although there's this flare up right next to it. What's going on there?
probably a convection for the eye wall starting to finally get its act together, starting to get its eye wall to finally strengthen and consolidate. So pretty much, if this thing is supposed to get a category 2, which it is forecasted to do, it needs to get its eye wall together. But we hope it doesn't get a category 2. But if it does, that is what it would need to do. But the cloud tops on the RAM imagery have just completely went south.
And Craig David's posted in the Discord server the wind shear map. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
I've got some information on the wind shear. If I can go to the Joint Typhoon Warning Centre's latest advisory. Sea surface temperature first Nathan is a very healthy 30 to 30, 31, 32 degrees Celsius. Wind shear is 5 to 10 knots, and the cyclone is benefiting from excellent poleward, equatorward outflow channels. And they're saying the environment will allow for additional intensification. Yeah,
that looks to be the case, Craig.
Yeah, because wind shear is decreasing over the system right now, plus the fact on the upper levels, as pointed out before this thing became a cyclone, as in hurricane force cyclone, that this thing was developing an upper level anti-cyclone, so which would help this thing really kick up in intensity.
About 40 knots up, the upper level divergence over the system is up around the 40 knot mark. Tropical Cyclone 02A, which is the other name, will continue tracking north-northwest through the next 48 hours, and a steering ridge will build to the west within 48 hours, allowing the cyclone to track more towards the northwest as it approaches land.
I've never heard of anyone saying 02A. That's the other name.
Well, it is. The original name.
No, I think it was and that other name.
Apart from it not being a name.
You just like how I came out with that, aren't you?
It's Mekunu, David. It's Mekunu.
Is that he was avoiding it? Yes.
The tropical cyclone 02 will dissipate over land as the intensity decreases to 30 knots. Dynamic model guidance has come into better agreement over the last 6 hours. However, the large model spread, Nathan, is indicating 110 nautical miles at the time of landfall.
Okay.
A large model spread of 110 nautical miles. What would that mean? The radius?
You're talking about model spread there, were you, or?
Yeah, of 110 nautical miles.
It depends
at the time of landfall.
At the time of landfall, yeah. Well, that means the models are disagreeing by a factor of 110 miles.
Yeah.
You draw a line 110 miles along the coast, it could make landfall anywhere along there, and I suppose Salalai is in that. And David, if you're struggling with the pronunciation, or just to get your head around the name that I've forgotten as well.
Well, at least I'm not the only one.
Indeed.
But I am here in Australia for our viewers.
Or Mekunu, whichever one it is. Mekunu, I think
Oh,
we're going to
nice.
stick with. You should take a
Mekunu.
look at.
Are we gonna go paddling up a
Mekina.
river?
No, you should take a look at some of the place names in Oman and Yemen, and I'm sure you'll really struggle then.
Ooh.
I think I'm making history here by being involved in a live event covering the Arabian Sea.
That may be quite true. Is this actually the first live event we've done on an Arabian Sea storm? I can't
might
quite remember.
Oh, we're
In
part
any
of
case,
history.
we're thankful that you've decided to join us this evening, everyone watching. And if you do have any questions for us, that is what we're here for. Do send your messages in to Force13 on the live chat right now. Of course, you can follow any of our outlets as well on Facebook and Twitter. Search Force13 all in text.
And I'm monitoring any questions in the chat.
Well, in the meantime, let's change our attention slightly and go somewhere else. I'll just leave
Oh no.
leave this image up for a minute, and then
I know exactly where Nathan is going with this.
well, it does need to be mentioned.
No, it doesn't.
It does.
It's a Colin want to be.
People are interested in what it's going to do.
It's, oh my god.
Well, anything's possible on a live stream, isn't it?
Except this is the Atlantic.
All right, we're now looking at the Atlantic
Early.
view, and I don't know if you're able to see this, Craig, but there's some convection flaring up off the coast of the Yucatan Peninsula.
That's being sheared
Right.
It is.
to extents unknown to man. It is near. Oh god damn it! The shear's decreasing.
This is Invest 90L.
Shear increase. Come on. Do the exact same for Mekunu. Increase in front of that.
And you can view the Invest on the satellite imagery on Force 13's automated service, half-finished automated service on the half-finished website, and you can also look at the other views on there as well, like this one. It's updated automatically, which is certainly a relief for me. And there you can see the storm on visible imagery on the far left of your image, looking extremely disorganized. Let's see if there's a better one. Let's try this one. There we go. That's the best resolution one, I believe.
And a bit of vorticity there too, Nathan.
Very elongated, which would probably mean that this thing is completely. It's a train wreck.
Huh.
It's a train wreck of an Invest. But
When
whether
she-
this does develop, or, well, regardless of development, when this thing does reach the US Gulf Coast, flash flooding, storm surge flooding from it when it arrives, tornadoes could be another threat from it. In fact, tornadoes would near enough be a.
Now, Craig,
Yes.
we did some polling on 90L. On Facebook, we asked whether it would develop, become a named storm, the first named storm of the season in the Atlantic. What's that? 66% yes. We also did it on YouTube, and there's a staggering 267 votes on it, and it's 77% yes.
Right.
So
I'll currently say this.
very few people think it won't form, and you're one of them.
I'm going to put the cat amongst the pigeons and make a bet with the viewers here. I'm probably going to live to regret this. Right?
Wait for it.
If this thing does not form, nothing will happen. If this thing does form, I will dye my hair a color I hate.
What colour's that?
Which, any color that's either green, because I don't like the look of it,
Purple.
or I'm a fan of purple. I'll not dye it blue because I like blue, obviously.
Blonde.
Yeah, probably green.
Okay then, there we are.
There's a
Alright,
bet.
you heard it first.
There's a bet.
Wonderful.
Oh, Jesus Christ, what have I done?
Oh,
Yes, Craig. What
that's
have
that.
you done?
Let's go back to the main feature then, which
Oh, no.
is, and there's a new image of it as well, of the Cyclone Mekunu. And in the latest imagery, if we could be serious for a few moments, is showing perhaps maybe the beginning of a transfer of power here. There's a new flare up right near the centre, and the old one seems to be weakening a bit, and maybe it's going to be pushed out into a band or something, as it often does.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise
But
me.
still signs of the eye trying to come out. I don't think there's any new actual imagery, but I'll go and have a look just in case.
Whether there is any.
That's 6 p.m. UTC there, which is 38 minutes ago. What do you think of that? Not too much different from the... Well, that is the same one that we saw earlier, isn't it?
That dry air intrusion that looks to be there, if it is one, that seems to be getting a little bit closer. Either that's just a separation for the curve band.
Let's animate this imagery then, and see what we get. See if we can spot any trends. You can see significant rainfall fell on Socotra Island there in the last hour, last 2 hours.
They could have potentially got some form of flooding out of that, maybe flash flooding.
Certainly. I mean, you're looking at that. That was probably 3 inches in some areas on that island there in that hour alone.
Yeah. There were probably flash flooding occurring, very, very likely. I mean, there was black in that briefly flashed up on that area of rain, that brief thunderstorm.
Now look more towards the centre of the storm, and what do you see?
Well, we were seeing what looks to be a massive flare-up of precip, which is looking like another thunderstorm blowing up as well.
And is it a westward jog right now?
Well, that looks like it is moving. It's hard to tell because that's... But it looks more like it is progressively moving westward. But it does look like it is moving west. It does look like it.
Well, that would certainly screw up the models again.
That really would put the cat amongst the models.
Indeed.
I'm terribly sorry about that, folks.
David, are you able to screen share at all?
Possibility, but I really haven't tried.
Well, I'm just wondering if you could maybe show us some model runs.
All right, give me
Because
I
I don't want Craig to do it because we won't be able to hear his wonderful critique.
Well, I know how to avoid that problem.
Oh, do you now?
The problem was that there's a choice
Well,
to.
Craig wants to do it, and I can
we'll
bring
try.
up some information after, but I want to bring this news from Oman,
Okay.
and it's in the Oman Daily Observer, dated the 23rd. High-level meeting discussed the precautionary measures in the wake of alerts sounded by the meteorological departments about the cyclonic storm.
Well, it is still the 23rd over there, David, for another 20 minutes.
Right. Minister of State and Governor of Dhofar reviewed a meeting with the Subcommittee for Civil Defence and members representing all government and civil sectors. The government took stock of the readiness of various departments in order to determine the maximum support that could be provided to the people. He also put stress on the communication between the committee and citizens and residents through the emergency centres and directed to provide all the available facilities and services. He called upon the citizens and residents to be cautious, not to take the risk of crossing the WADIS, W-A-D-I-S, and
Yes.
advise them to keep away
The
from
Wadis,
low
they
places.
are
The Watis.
dry rivers. effectively.
So basically, staying away from the that area. And the public were doubtful about the cyclone's landfall, thinking that it would pass like previous cyclones,
Well, yes.
which could not
And I
make
tell you
landfall.
I tell you what, if it really is making a jog towards the west here, chances of landfall in Oman will be decreasing. And if another storm goes to miss, then that just pushes it onto the next one. And, you know, it's the crying wolf syndrome, isn't it? And we saw a lot of that in the Atlantic until last year.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, it still looks like it's heading towards Oman, especially near the border with Yemen.
Yep. Nathan, what was the name of the islands that you and Craig were talking about offshore?
There are actually several islands there. They are all known as the Socotra Islands, as far as I'm aware.
Evacuations already started in the
I should hope they started some time ago, unless you're thinking, where?
ALHALLANIYAT Islands, and the
You've lost
people
me.
being shifted to Sharm. Now, I'll send it through.
Yeah, please do. I'll relay it. Oh, we do have the screen share now. I'm sorry. Here it is.
Okay, I'll put the text here.
So, are we able to hear you, Craig?
I don't know, are you?
Yes, we are.
Yes,
Excellent.
that's good.
Oh, god damn it, Discord. That's one update I really do disapprove on. Oh. So, I was just having a look through the ECMWF just now. They're saying that the cyclone will genuinely go with the forecast track, but curving to the northwest, almost, you know, pretty much doing a full turn going west, near enough, and strengthening all the way, getting down to 966. So that on the ground would be what, probably the 950. So a pretty significant cyclone to hit. What's that? That's on the border.
Pretty
Makes
much,
landfall
yes.
just on the border of Yemen and Oman.
It might be heading that way.
So then it dissipates, and then nothing else is heard of it from the ECMWF. The Wishcast model.
Oh.
There's a good name for it. There's a good name.
I'd just like you to stick to these two models for this storm, and then we can look at 90L.
Oh. I am saying that through gritty teeth, folks.
Craig really has a hate for Atlantic cyclones.
Wow.
Go on, get on with it.
So here's the Wishcast model, aka GFS. It says that the cyclone will move gradually northeastwards a little bit.
I just don't see that happening.
Curving sharply, but well, then again, this is why the GFS is called the Wishcast model.
No, but that's pretty much what the ECMWF said as well, to be fair.
But to be fair to ECMWF, it's got more sense than GFS. Except it doesn't make any of them right.
They both might be nonsense, yes.
Exactly. In fact, ECMWF doesn't exactly cover itself in glory either. But anyway, the cyclone, according to GFS, makes landfall in Oman.
Yes, because you don't know anywhere else in Oman, do you?
No, I don't.
That's to the east of Salalah, and it is pretty sparsely populated, to be fair. That is... now I know the islands David is talking about. The Al-Halania Island, which is to the east of Salalah. You can just about see it on Craig's map there. Those small islands, just the southernmost islands off Oman.
Oops.
And they've been evacuated to Sharm. And the Romanian military on standby. Their message is basically the same to the governments.
Let's move on to
And
90L, Craig.
I was just looking at the
90L.
navgem. Does the navgem predict it to stall?
Really?
Yeah, the navgem
24
version
hours?
predicts it to stall.
Gosh.
It predicts it to stall. And then
Well,
move gradually
Oh dear,
northward before turning and stalling again. Right on the coast. Well, just shy of the coast.
Wow.
I'm predicting something else in the Bay of Bengal.
Yeah,
probably
some-
from 93B.
A broad, weak system there.
That also stalls. Navgem, you really like stalling things. And then apparently, well, according to Navgem, that's it. Now on to the dreaded thing.
Yes, yes. We're only staying for the hour, by the way, and we'll get some more videos on later on this evening.
So the Navgem for 90 thing doesn't exactly expect it to do much else
Oh,
apart
there it
from
is.
it tries to spin it up, but that's hard to tell. Does that develop it? Is that a depression? Tell you what, it
I
would
would
be very
say,
depressing.
I'd
if
say
that
it
formed.
is.
That's depressing. And then it makes landfall in the Florida Panhandle. Probably if it that
As
were
a
to
Colin, by the
happen-
looks of things.
Oh well, that's even worse.
Craig, what's the National Hurricane Centre saying about it?
Uh,
The percentage is up to what, 50%, isn't it?
60.
Up
60
to
in the next
60.
5 days.
060. I mean, it's
Yeah.
quite not particularly often that you see a 0 in front of a 60. Usually you at least got
I
10
think-
or 20 by now, but still 0 in 48 hours.
I think we've seen that a few times in Eastern Pacific where we've ended up getting up to around 80% and still have 0 on 48 hours.
Well,
80% in the next 5 days. I think I seen that at some point in 2015. I honestly couldn't put my finger on which storm that was because that would be me being really pernickety. But ACMWF for 90 thing L. God, I'm having bad future flash ons from this bet that I made. Oh, good God. So the ACMWF predicts
Oh, look at that one. Oh no, that's north.
a little something up there, but it probably extra
Oh.
tropical.
yes.
Now this is the cyclonic vorticity, isn't it?
Yeah, so this would pretty much pick
Yep.
up anything else.
And
So-
the
oh,
There it
wind
is.
and pressure.
ACMWF and NavGem, I'm going to have
There
you.
it goes.
You
Louisiana.
want my fate and my head to go green. It
Hold
Oh.
on. Where's it going then? It's not
It
coming
does-
round for round 2, is it?
Unknown. Tune in for next week.
Tune in next
and
week.
to find out what happens to 90 thing. Starring
can-
ACMWF.
So you can quite clearly tell Craig's opinion of the system in the Atlantic.
Craig, can we have a look at one of the other models read the vorticity?
Let's just look at the
Ooh.
GFS. We're running out of time.
GFS?
The Wishcast model. So they're saying, please say nothing, please say nothing. Yes!
A little something going through Florida there, but not developing.
It doesn't form it. Yes!
And then sweeping up the US East Coast might deliver some significant conditions locally,
Probably delivering maybe to Florida some severe thunderstorms, maybe the odd tornado warning, a few tornadoes, maybe water spouts as well. Water spouts would probably be a certain near enough. And then going up the East Coast, a few severe thunderstorm warnings elsewhere, Alabama, Georgia, and all that would be very likely. A few tornado warnings could also be issued during those days, especially if the GFS expects the low to virtually stall.
So
and
why
then
do you
just
think
die out
the
there.
National Hurricane Center is at 60% in 5 days?
I honestly don't know. I
that must be-
really don't know.
They must see something. Sea surface temperature wouldn't be an issue, would it?
Sea surface temperatures in the
Well-
Gulf. This
Drop
time,
away a bit.
maybe towards the coast. If I would be correct with that statement,
I would assume so.
I could, but yeah, I mean, if this thing were to form, this thing would be incredibly weak. It would almost probably be another Ghost Philippe or another swear word Colin. Oh, damn it.
Craig's really riled this evening. And
So
he'll
here's
tell
the other
me we
worst
ain't seen
one.
nothing yet.
Oh, Christ. So
Craig,
here's the
let's
other
have a
worst
look at
case.
this model.
Yep.
Take it through the run.
The HWR for Mekunu. I'm starting to rub it in with that.
This is another version of
pronunciation now.
what we saw earlier in the hour.
Yeah. So this is pretty much what the HWRF has been saying. So they're saying
Ooh,
in
look at that.
category 3 of around 115 miles per hour. It's still significant to say the least. As it rapidly, well, I would say,
No,
so
no.
110 knots there. There's
Yeah.
110.
Yeah.
So 110 before it reaches landfall, but this is obviously the lowest pressure is 944 at landfall. So it would probably be around that. It's a pressure gradient. Well,
obviously the pressure after peak takes a longer time to decrease than it was to increase than it was to decrease.
Yeah. That would be it for the models.
Okay.
So, Nathan, just quickly, the percentages for 90L, would you put it 50-50 or 60-40?
Interesting question. I'd say 40% right now. I don't know what's going on with this imagery, by the way.
I'm guessing. I'm guessing that you're on about the live stream one.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the web, but for some reason something very strange has happened with that. But you could see, until pretty much Craig stopped talking, the actual imagery. But for some reason it's just decided to show up this black and white weird stuff.
Oh, that's a first, Nathan.
Yeah, it is quite. Don't know what's going on with that. But that's pretty much everything, really. The storm right now, if you could see it, is around 50 miles to the east of Socotra Island. And at the moment appears to be maybe doing a bit of a jog to the west, if you could see it at all. Let's take a look at some other imagery if we can then. Here's some imagery. There's the latest. That's the latest image of the storm, and I'll see if I can try and get that rain estimate back up again. But it looks like something has actually failed on that at this point. It's a glitch with their software and nothing here, so unfortunately we can't take a look back at that, but we can still look at everything else as far as I'm aware. But but it wouldn't surprise me, at least, to see possibly a distinct eye start to appear pretty soon.
Thank you. I was just going to ask about the
Craig,
eye.
what do you think? Is he gone?
Looks like it might be having technical issues. Viewers.
Full of technical issues today.
Oh, yes. And hopefully, as this system deepens, the International Space Station might fly over it, and we might be able to capture some footage.
Well, there we are. Any final comments, David?
Well, Force 13 will be keeping an eye on this system, and I appreciate being part of the stream for this part of the world. And for the viewers, I'm here in Australia on the East Coast and approaching 6 AM. The support in the chat's been appreciated, and Nathan will, well, the Force 13 will continue to provide information.
You're stealing all my thunder, David.
Well, if anybody would like to be part of Force 13, you can check out our various media platforms.
Well, I don't have to say anything now, do I? This was Force 13 Live. We'll be back again at another scheduled appointment at some point in the near future. In the meantime, stay up to date on the website, on the YouTube channel. Why are you laughing? Subscribe if you haven't already. And,
Well, it's been good to hear and appreciate you broadcasting.
Thank you.
Bye.
Subscribe if you haven't already for any more information, and maybe more storm updates coming later today into tomorrow. Obviously, it's late hours over in Oman right now, but of course we will keep you regularly updated on the storm, with possible more live events coming up in the next few days, not only on this, but on what may go on in the Atlantic as well. We'll obviously be waiting with bated breath, as I'm sure you are as well. And of course, we will be providing the service required to keep people safe in those storm areas. If you've got any more comments, queries, questions, you can of course contact us on Force 13's channels on Facebook and Twitter, search Force 13 all in text, or you can add Force 13 on Skype and my personal account on Discord, Fool13, hashtag 9094. But for now, from us and from Cyclone Mekunu, there'll be more updates later, I assume, but from now, that's us saying goodnight.
And that was Nathan.